This is November 29th, 2020. And today's subject is historical erasing or erasing history. And there's an old saying about that the conqueror always writes the history of time. So I would like for you to look up, this is called, I think it might be called Magruder Project.
Okay.
And this is, I think the brother's name is Trevor Paris. I think I just was barely hearing it, so
Okay.
Magruder Project.
Okay. You said Trevor Harris?
Trevor Paris.
Trevor Paris. Okay. I got, there's an Aaron Magruder. Maybe I'm spelling Magruder wrong.
Okay, Magruder, that might be did it have something to do with a town that was in Virginia?
Okay, here we go. There's a Magruder Project. No, that's something else. Let me see. The Magruder Project Incorporated. No. Oh, what I might be messing up on.
Okay, try this one. This is Brian Palmer.
Brian Palmer. Okay.
Brian Palmer and what was that?
Yeah, is he a journalist?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, Richmond-based journalist, visual journalist.
Yes.
At Type Investigations, formerly the Investigative Fund. Okay, let me go here.
Did he have a project dealing with what we might call where he looked up a lot of black cemeteries and some of the black towns that used to exist?
All right, let me try to look up those terms. And, black. Okay. Got something here. Brian Palmer and Aaron Holloway Palmer, The Afterlife of Jim Crow. Is that kind?
That's right along with it, yeah.
All right, yeah, it was. Okay, let me wait for this thing to load. The Afterlife of Jim Crow is a multifaceted expedition of photography, historical research, and volunteer programming, and explores the restoration of the East End Cemetery through journalism, activism, and artistic perspective of Brian Palmer and Aaron Holloway Palmer.
Right.
Is that my kind of area?
Yeah, you're right in the area. The ideas about cemeteries.
Yeah.
And about
yeah, that's exactly what
erasing history, and he did some good research.
Yeah, oh wow, yeah. That's my neck of the woods here. Reading it, yeah. It was this project that led them to the East End Cemetery, an African-American burial ground in Henrico County that has suffered from decades of neglect.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, so you don't find nothing about either the town of Magruder or the Magruder Project?
Yeah, that's what I'm about to see. Looking at this here, can I search this page and see if they got anything on here?
It was on a program yesterday morning called With Good Reason. With Good Reason. And they were doing, half the time I'm sitting there, or I'm just laying down with the radio on, and I'm picking up the stuff, and sometimes from years ago and years of practice, when most of the real news, when I would say real news, I mean their news, like in the 90s and all of that period, It would come on National Public Radio early in the morning or late at night. I mean,
Okay.
you would never, the news that you heard on NPR during the day here was different. At night, they would talk about the Islamic movement, and they would talk about immigration and what have you in the UK. And, you know, you could pick up before the internet and before all those things.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I found it now.
What's that?
I found the website with good reason, and they have a segment summary bringing up that by Travis Harris, saying that after Pearl Harbor, the United States Navy needed land for bases and training.
Right.
Travis Harris says that the Magruder community was just one of many mostly black communities displaced for military bases.
Right.
Okay.
Camp Perry, that's it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
And they didn't, the people woke up, they were sleeping, they woke up and there was bulldozers in the front yard. People walking with hard hats on, walking off through their gardens.
So they were on
And
that
a
side.
few of them held out for money, but most of them was just moved to tents. They just, you know, moved in and took over. And it just so happens that the majority of the places they took over was the black towns. See, back this way, like when you mentioned where you're from, and see, Virginia and Maryland and these places back here have old black towns. I mean, they have, you know, old black towns that existed. They had their church, their cemetery, and their little business district, whole communities.
Yeah.
I mean, Maryland is full of them. Virginia is full of them.
Yeah.
And they had, when you would look at the places they had what they call now prime real estate.
They did.
Right on the riverfront.
Yeah. In
You know
Richmond,
what I mean?
Jackson Ward, Shockoe Bottom, Mosby Court, those were the.
Man, look at here.
Yep.
Indianapolis, Indiana
had it too.
Where Madam C.J. Walker was.
She was.
That area, they called it Naptown. It was exactly that. And
Yeah.
the
Okay.
universities.
Yeah, that's right. Madam C.J. Walker was right there in Indiana. She was first back here somewhere, then she
Yeah.
moved to Indiana.
That's right.
Okay.
Then she moved next to Rockefeller somewhere.
Right.
That's what I heard, you know.
Right.
Anyway, so what I just wanted to verify that those places exist and those projects existed and the people did research on it. And I just wanted to mention in brief about, the title is Erasing History. And black people have, see, you know, like right now in Mecca, Saudi Arabia have been going headlong for years to get rid of certain grave sites of famous people that they didn't agree with. And see, after 100 years or so, you don't, there's no proof that what are you talking about? You know, where's the signs, the symbols? And so they're doing it today. They've been doing it to get rid of those grave sites and those mausoleums that people have built, or people say lovers of Ahlul Bayt might have loved a certain companion, and then after some decades or some centuries, they built a little mausoleum and da-da-da-da-da, and up and up and up. You can travel all over that area, and they have what they call Imam Zadis. Imam Zadi is the son of one of the great personalities. You know, Imam Zadi, the son of special Imam, and they're all over Iran. They're all over. And people, it's just out there by itself, and people come, and you could see money, they throw money right in there, and anytime you go by, there's money in there. Can you imagine if you threw money in somewhere around here? What would happen to that money? Hey man, it wouldn't be no Imam, it would be a long time ago. It would have never, anyway, about erasing history. In our own area, do you know what's right over there? Right, you can walk through our backyard, right over there. I used to walk through that cemetery and I'd see those, I only think they got one big one left from 1837. But that is a famous cemetery. I think it's Woodlawn or something like that. Believe it or not, one of the ladies, when I first got here, I lived with them. They worked for the city some kind of way. And they was following up a report on this cemetery, or they was in charge of it. And the last time I walked over there, they had hired a Negro. He took a lot of money from the city, and in order for him to do what he wanted to do, he removed all the gravestones, and all the gravestones is all lined up. They was lined up right back there. They were all lined up. He took all the graves because he wanted to just cut the grass or something.
Oh.
And he took them all up. The only one that I saw left was that big, the tall one that's standing over there right now, from 1837. But I used to walk through there, and I would look at all the dates, 1815, 1793, some, such and such was born. And sometimes you might see a little family in a row, people. And that's right there, right there. So once you remove those old cemeteries that they were talking about, and sometimes that was just a carved piece of wood, because they didn't have money for gravestone. And you can see it was scratched. But you got to remember, when you're researching like history and black history, for instance, if you go to a gravesite and you can get the name, you may be looking for one person and you can't find that person. But in this graveyard, there's a person and you can read their history and they can mention that person. It might have been a member of the family. For instance, some of the history right here in Virginia that was collected, that was the black federal soldiers, One, when he had to fill out his it was a petition for his pension. He had to put a lot of information on there, and they asked all those questions. Now, when I think about those pensions, I think about what my father told me. And that's why I feel so close to all of this. He said, you may not remember old man so-and-so, and he was getting a pension from the Civil War. And those people were still alive during his time. They was way alive during his time. He was born in 1900. That means my aunt was born in 1898, and my grandmother was born in 1871 or 2. That means a few years out of slavery. Right. And so my grandfather, I'm sure, was born in slavery, because usually the man was older than the woman. But anyway, and on the church down there in Arkansas, it has 1900. It has my grandfather's name on it, Cephas rings, and it's almost really scratched hard. And I noticed when I first took the picture years ago of it, it was stronger, and I can imagine in a few years, it'll just, you'd barely be able to make it out. But the point was this: from remember we talked about the Battle of Vicksburg. Now y'all heard some of the stuff, but you might not have been able to hear it too. But one thing my grandnephew said, we'll have it transcribed, which he won't, but I'll have it transcribed, you know what I mean? Where people listen to it over and over and they'll type it out, you know exactly what he was saying. You'll be able to go and research, because in the Battle of Vicksburg, it is exactly, I don't know if y'all saw the program on the History Channel about Grant. That was his first big battle. You got to remember, Vicksburg covers, when you can control Vicksburg, you can control the whole Mississippi. So they had a ring around the South, and they could cut off the North had a ring. It was a blockade all around all the ports, from way up here all the way down and around. They had them blockaded. Well, but the Mississippi River, man, that boy runs all the way up from Minnesota. I was up there giving a talk at the university in Minnesota, and there's a little stream there. It's, you know, you cross it on, it says Mississippi River. I said that. And then, but when you get down a little further, that boy picks up. And it picks up pretty soon. It's one of the biggest rivers in the world. Okay, but anyway, those people that, as my father told me, some of those people were getting pensions. And he said, now old man so-and-so, and he mentioned his name, he wasn't getting a pension because the battle got so heavy, he just walked away. Now they couldn't do nothing to him, but he didn't get no pension. And all the other people there, imagine a southern town, a little town in those days. The reason my father heard the story so much, and it was exactly like they said on TV, because everybody that was in that battle that was left over was from that little town in Arkansas, right? And you know how old people do, they tell the same story over and over, and pretty soon you just got it. Now, with these towns, the subject is erasing history and erasing. See, memory, the farther back we went, the better our memory was. What I mean is, you remember when you used to know all your telephone numbers you had to call? How many you know now? Not too many. Why? Because you stick the thing and push the button. You don't even remember. I couldn't call nobody. When I go to jail, I just said, I have to stay in jail. I ain't going to be calling nobody no way. I can't remember the numbers. And is it a so-and-so or this or that? But in those days, like the Arabs' memory was very good. But since people didn't read and write much in those days, their memory was sharp. They memorized everything. And everything they passed on, they passed it on pretty well. No, their memory was good. That's why I was, when I recorded my father, he said, he was telling me about, yeah, so-and-so, he moved to Seattle. The last time we heard from him was something like April the 22nd, 1934. I said, this is 50 years later. I understand it now because I'm that age. I'm getting into that. I said, I was just amazed that this is just a postcard. We got a postcard from so-and-so from Seattle. He moved to Seattle, one of our relatives, and the last time we heard from him was April the 22nd, 1934. I said, oh man, that's serious. And I'm doing the interview in 84, 50 years. Unbelievable. Anyway, so the brothers that was doing this, some of their research related to people who had to fill out some of they were part of the African American military entourage down there, and they fought in the Civil War, of course, on the side of the U.S. And when they filled out their paperwork, the historians now can find out where they lived and what they did, and some of the other people, some of the history, because on those pension requests, they had a lot of questions. And you had to fill out those questions. And those questionnaires are very important to us now as far as reconstructing our history. Reconstructing our history. While you're here, could you, and I'll keep on talking, but
Yeah.
can you look up the Termination Act of 1953? Termination Act.
You know, they did that with the Book of Negroes too.
Right.
The ship, they asked all those detailed questions
Right.
of those that were getting on the boat.
Right.
And, you know, so that's just something that I remembered from.
Yeah, they had to have, well, what you was in a battle. What battle was you in? What, how did you help?
Well, no, I'm talking about from the history that I read was like what plantation you on,
Right.
and you know where, you know what state, what have you.
Yes, yes.
So
Yeah, who was the boss man
right,
there?
right.
All of that stuff.
That's right.
Well, see, that oral history, when it's written down, you know, by pen, you know, the pen is a permanent record, or semi-permanent, because in a million years, nobody will care about what happened, yeah, if it lasts that long, you know. But it's a semi-permanent record. And you go and get the Rosetta Stone and all that stuff. Oh, this is an Aramaic, and it's saying the same thing that said. So you can compare, and you can really understand a lot of things that was going on. Now, for us, this project of erasing history, when you erase the history of that cemetery right there, you're erasing one of the last bastions of African American. That mean the workers. That mean who was in D.C., all the maids and all of this and all of that, right? And when that guy took the gravestones and set them up, I said, what did he do that for?